Here we go. So yesterday we learned about an interesting halacha. We had a discussion. Gana v'tavach u'machar b'Shabbos, or gana v'tavach b'Shabbos. The Tanakama said that you're chayiv dal vei, and the Gemara wants to know how could you be chayiv dal vei? Is commonly b'derabamine. The shchita was a shchita that's mechayiv misa to the person who shechted. So what did the Gemara answer? The Gemara answered that speaking where you didn't shecht it yourself, the Ganav appointed a shliach to shecht the animal, and therefore the Baal ein shliach l'dvar. He's not chayiv misa for the shchita, but he is chayiv dal v'hei. So the Gemara asked, if you hold ein shliach l'dvar lagabe the chiv Shabbos, you would also say ein shliach l'dvar lagabe being mechuyev in dal v'hei. So for that, the Gemara answers. That there's a special chidush by tvicha that even if it's done al yidei shliach, the ganav will be chayiv for the tvicha, and we learn it from the comparison between tvacha and mechira. A mechira has to be done with the participation of another person. So too, tvicha can be done with the participation of another person. Hence, a shomer, hence a shliach would be mechayiv you without day. So let me ask you a question. How did you understand what it means that he was memana shliach to shech for him? Doesn't mean he was memana shliach to shech for him. He told the shliach shech, and the shliach on his own decided that he's going to shecht it on Shabbos. So there you say the Shabbos is not mine. That's not part of the shlichus. The shechita is part of the shlichus, and therefore I'm chayav. What would be if I told the shliach I bedafka want you to shecht it on Shabbos? What would be the din over there? Would you also say that the shlichus is good and he's chayiv dal v'hei, or maybe there you wouldn't say that? You hear the shayla? Anybody?
Ain't shliach l'dvar.
Right, we understand that, but the question is legabe dal v'hei. There is a shlichus l'dvar. So what I want to know is, does that mean even if it sure means if he was mamana him to shecht, and the shliach on his own decided to shecht it on Shabbos. There for sure, Shabbos is not my business. I asked you to shecht. Never told you to shecht it on Shabbos. But what if I bedavka was mamana the shliach bedavka to shecht on Shabbos? Would you also say there that I'm chayiv dal v'hei? So this is the machlokes between the Maggid Mishnah and the Tur. The Maggid Mishnah, I think, says that he would be potter because there the shlichus wouldn't work, and I think the Torah says the shlichus would work over it. So the shayla is, what is the svara of this machlokes? What does it tell you? There was another discussion.
What about kimli? Even if I hold that the shlichus is a good shlichus,
I'm not chayiv misa, so there's no kimli gavli on me. The ganav is for sure not chayiv misa. The ganav wasn't mechal Shabbos. The shliach was. So there are those who want to learn pshat in this machlokes as follows, and it gets to the very core of the halacha ben shlich levarver. And there are those who learn that what is the rule of ein shlich levarver? Is it that there's no din shlichus, so the shlichus is not chal at all? So therefore, if I'm imana a shliach to shecht b'davka on Shabbos, that shlichus is null and void. Or maybe the definition of ein shlich l'vayavera is of course the shlichus works, but the avera doesn't transfer. But there's still a shlichus over here. So the Maggid Mishnah holds that ein shlich l'vayavera means the whole shlichus is null and void. Therefore, I wouldn't be chayiv dal v'hei, because the shlichus was the shecht on Shabbos. That's not a shlichus that will be a possible shlichus. Well, the Torah says ein shlich l'vayavera means you can't get the einish for the shechting on Shabbos, but it's still considered like you shechted.
If somebody tells you to go hit your father,
right?
You're not allowed to hit your father.
And said you
were.
Of course you can.
You can't make somebody a shliach that you should go hit your father.
The question is, what is the shlichus? I'm talking about a shlichus that actually has a halachic ramification. Like, for instance, if I send somebody to be
There's
Mekadosh
no
an Isha,
halachic ramification. There's a halachic ramification. You're not allowed to hit your father. It's the right to.
and I understand, but Lagabi, what does he need me to hit my father for? It's not trying to off any type of chalots, right? If it's a physical action, that's the shaila is I'm trying to do a chalots. Let's say I send somebody to be Mekadosh an Isha for me, and there's an Isser in the Kedusha. So there, do you say the Kedusha is chal, or do you say the Kedusha is not?
No, of course not. The Chadush, if you can't do it yourself, then how can you tell somebody to do it for you?
I hear. So I'm going to share with you a big machlokes that occurred in the 1800s between the Noida Yehuda and a Yid Rabbi Yitzchak Halberstam, a Yitzchak from Amsterdam. There are two massive poiskin, and there was a machlokes between them. And what happened is there was a woman whose husband wanted to give her a divorce. She refused to accept the divorce. So there's a cher der benegation to divorce a woman against her will. But the Bezdin allowed the husband to give her a get against the will because they summoned her to Bezdin and she didn't want to come. So they considered her an Iveris Aldas, someone who doesn't listen to halacha. And there you could give her a divorce against her will. And therefore, they gave her the divorce. She happened to have been the niece of the Noida Yehuda. So as she was sharing her plight with the Noida Yehuda, the Noida Yehuda was listening to the details of her story. And the Noida Yehuda held, you can hardly refer to this woman as an Iveris Aldas. She had a right not to come. She's not an Iveris Aldas. So therefore, there was no right to give her a get Balkorchi. But it doesn't matter. He gave her the get. So the get's out. But he felt it was unjustified. But in her telling over the details of the story, she mentioned something that he jumped on, that the husband didn't give the get directly, rather the husband gave the get for a shliach. As soon as the Noida Yehuda heard that, he jumped up and he said, according to the Maggid Mishnah, the shlichus is batel. Because if there's a shlichus that has an aver involved, the whole shlichus is batel. So he held that this lady is an Eishes and the shlichus is batel.
What's the Avera?
Giving a get balkorcha. So I see from David there's a hand there, their medication, that's out of the various, they're bun. So that, in fact, gets into a whole other shaila. There's actually a shaila if the hand der benegation constitutes a deraisa. But that's a whole different shaila. So you jumped right on that point, because in fact, yeah, it's in the Rabban, you wouldn't say it.
Is the chalois of the action still applies?
Right, the shlichus work, but there's no avera transferred over, right. Or the whole shlichus is buckle. That's mama's dish shaila. So the Yehuda wanted to taina that according to the Maggid Mishnah, this is a apostle again. And she's not Mugareshus.
Now bring it to here.
So, but he had an uncle. The husband had an uncle, but in Yitzchak Amsterdam, who said that it was a good thing. Because of that, there was a series of letters back and forth from the Noida Yehuda to this Rabbi Yitzchak. And what happened is it started, the tone of the conversation started to get a little bit abrasive, as we can call it. So at one point, Rabbi Yitzchak wrote a letter to Noida Yehuda saying that you're saying from the Maggid Mishnah this great chiddush, but I think you're wrong. So the Noida Yehuda responded as follows. He says, yes, this is a great chiddush. And I actually didn't say it in the name of the Maggid Mishnah. I said it in my own name to explain it in the Maggid Mishnah. And Lamaisa, I'm not such a big Talmud Chacham. This is Noida Yehuda talking. And I'm not capable of coming up with such unbelievable svaras. So how is Azecha did a svar? Clearly because I was very concerned that there shouldn't be an Eishes Rish who's going to be considered a Pnuya. And the Rebbeinu Yisrael wanted to save such a very chamura from happening. So because of that, the Rebbeinu Yisrael gave me this wisdom to say this pshat. On the other hand, your own whole motivation for arguing with me is because you feel you just have to be right. I have the Rebbeinu Yisrael was trying to help save Nisr Shish, and you have ego. I think we have to follow me. So the conversation got a little rough. Now, we do know that they got along wonderfully. How do we know? Because today I was in Bava, and I told this story over to Reb Shia's Edom. I forgot which Edom it was. It wasn't gross. It wasn't Zanger. What's it? I keep on forgetting. He's my neighbor. He lives down the street from me. I forgot which Adam it is. And he tells me, I know they get along because I'm an anical of both parties. Meaning, at one point they were mishadach.
Again.
They were mishadach.
Again.
No.
They were shocked now.
Oh, that's right. This should have broke off. Or I don't know if it broke off or not. Yeah. So we know they get along with that. So I just wanted to share that thought on Ein Shliach L'Dvar Ve'er. This I'm just saying what I heard over from Shirley Bornstein. It was beautiful, the shtickle that he said. Okay. Let's see the head of Gemara weiter.
So how was that resolved?
I'm not sure.
They were Mashadach again. You know the answer.
Yeah, but I don't think this couple. I think it must be difficult. Yeah. Zok to Gemara. Hashoichet v'nimtzes treif. So if we go back to Daf Ayin Amud Aleph, there were 4 cases all the way at the end of the mission. There was a shoichet l'refuah or l'klavim, which we're not going to focus on. There was a shoichet v'nimtzes treifa, which is a shchita sheini ru'uya. And there's the shoichet chulam ba'azara, which is also a shchita sheini ru'uya, because if one shechs chulam ba'azara, the meat becomes aser b'hana. So we're going to be focusing on hashoichet chulam ba'azara.
And
Rav Shimon said you're potter because it's a shchita sheini ru'uya. The Rabban said you're chayiv because it's a shchita ru'uya. Even though the basar doesn't become mutter, it remains aser b'hana. Nevertheless, it's considered a shchita, and therefore you're chayiv for dal v'hei. Amrab Chavivi mechazno l'Rabashi. Shema mina, from the fact that our chachamim in our Mishnah say that you pay dal v'hei for a shchita that just resulted in isra no, it must be eina l'shchita el l'basai. There's a machlokes. When is the ma'aseh shchita occurring? Does it occur the moment you start penetrating with the knife the animal's neck, and the gemar shchita isn't until you cut roiv shnayim? So the shchita is going on for a couple of seconds, right? Through cutting this 4, 5, 6 inches till you get to the simonim? Or do you say no? The shchita is only when you cross the threshold in that nanosecond where you're crossing the threshold from miyat shnayim to roiv shnayim, that's the shchita. All the cutting that you've been doing until then is merely prep work. So that is the shaila. What's the nafkamina? What do I care if during those 2 seconds it was considered shchita or not? Rashi tells us the nafkamina is pigel. The locha is if while someone is shechting a korban, he has a machshava to eat the meat, either chutz l'zmanoi out of the allotted time or chutz l'mkoimoi out of the allotted place. The locha is that korban is pigel and it's possible. What if someone was only thinking machshava is pigel in the first half of the shchita before he got to the roiv shnayim? If that's part of the shchita, then he had a bad machshava during the avodah. But if that's not part of the shchita, just prep work, then it doesn't matter what he was thinking then. It matters what he was thinking at the moment that he crossed the threshold from miyat shnayim to roiv shnayim. So Zog to Gemara, from our Mishnah, from the fact that the Chachamim could say that you're chayiv dalad v'hei for this shchita of chulin lazara, it must be that he holds ein l'shchita el lebasai. All the cutting before is merely prep. The shchita is at that second when you're crossing the threshold. Why? The yeshna l'shchita mitchila b'atzoif. If the shchita starts the moment the knife penetrates the animal's neck, that means the moment you penetrated the neck of this animal that was chulin in the azara, you started shechting chulin b'azara. Bam! Now this animal becomes asher b'no. Even the shachet b'apur to asra. And idach, the dalad v'hei chiv doesn't get triggered until you cut roiv shnayim. But at that point, it's lav de marekatov. Once the animal becomes asher b'no, it's not the owner's animal anymore, and therefore there should be no chiv dalad v'hei triggered at all. From the fact that the Mishnah says, according to Chachamim, you do pay dalad v'hei b'chulin b'azara, it must be that the shchita comes at the same time as the chiv tvicha, which is right at the end. So it must be ein l'shchita el lebasayif. Because if you held yesh l'shchita mitchila b'atzayif, by the time you got to the dalad v'hei portion, the animal no longer belongs to the bailim; it's already isur animal. So that was the right. Amalei Rav Huna b'rei Rava, I don't understand. Who told you this? Maybe the chiv of tvicha v'dalad v'hei also comes at the beginning. It's a shchita. Kika machayiv ahu porta. Amalei Rabashi, it cannot be. Loi sitchi, don't push me off that way, because the pasuk says v'tavchai huloi ba'inan v'leka. There's no chiv dalad v'hei until the gemar shchita. So that's a given. We learned it from the pasuk that there's no chiv dalad v'hei till the gemar shchita. If at that time it's a surah hana, there should be no chiv dalad v'hei.
Yeah,
So
see, if
therefore-
you don't have the tchila, you can't have the saf. I mean, it's
That's
all
true.
tayyibah.
That's true, but it's still a question of whether or not there's a chiv dalvei, whether it was a Bailam's animal. It still was not the Bailam's animal at the time. Unless what you're telling me is, if I didn't finish the shchita, then even if you hold yesh no shchita mitchila vatsoif, that's only if I ended up finishing it. If I ended up not finishing it, then the whole thing is good and fair. Which is Toish's kasha, and he says
In other words, going to Rav Huna, if I stopped halfway and the animal bled out,
it wouldn't be a shchita.
it would be a
It would not be considered
therefore,
shchita.
I wouldn't be chayav dalvei because I wasn't tafklei.
You didn't finish the shchita, of course not.
So if I shoot the animal, I don't have to pay.
You're not chayav
dalvei?
dalvei to shoot the animal. No. Ela kasha. So the Gemara says we have a problem over here. It seems to indicate from our Mishnah that the Rabbanan, the Tanakama holds, ein l'shchita ela b'sayf. Amalei no, hachi amar Rav Gamda mishmei derava, kegoyin sheshachat mikza simonim b'chutz. He started the shchita, yes, no shchita b'tchila b'sayf, but the beginning of the shchita was out of the azar, so there was no iser. And when did he bring it inside? At the last second.
You're talking of milliseconds.
Let me just, it's milliseconds. Come to chois at the moment that he was over shchudei chutz. I'm sorry, chulun bazara. At that moment, it also triggered the chiv dal vei, and therefore it was the animal of the owner when he completed the tficha, and that's why it's chayav dal vei. So therefore, you don't have a raya whether you hold yeshna l'shchita b'chila v'asoif or if you hold ein l'shchita ela b'soif. There's still a justification for someone who's shechting chulun bazara to be chayiv and dal vei. And that's the end of the sugya. Now we're going to have a direct repeat word for word of the same sugya, just brought and discussed under a different circumstance. Ika de Masni law, there are those who quote exactly the same Gemara. Aha. Rab Shimon mishum de Rab Levi. Sabo. Rab Shimon said in the name of Rab Levi Sabo, Eina l'shchita ela b'soif. Rabbi Yochanan Amar yeshna l'shchita mitchila b'atsoif. So they have this machloikis in the Seches Chulin, l'gabi the shaila of pigol. When do you have to have the machshava pig? So Rabbi Yochanan holds any time during the shchita, if you have a machshava pigol, it will passel the carbon. Amar le Rab Chavivi michaznal or Avashi. If that's the case, if Rabbi Yochanan holds yeshna l'shchita mitchila b'atzoif, lema kasav Rabbi Yochanan chulun shenishchatu ba'azor lav deraisa. He'll have to hold that chulun ba'azor is lav deraisa. And Tosha speaks out, and we know for a fact that Rabbi Yochanan happens to hold chulun bazar is deraisa. Why will Rabbi Yochanan have to hold chulun bazar is lav deraisa if he holds yes on the shchita mitchila b'atzar? Because of what we just said. The solkadaydach deraisa turning on tamid vase, mechishachet lapurta asra. The moment you shecht a drop of it, it will already be asra b'anoah, because if shchut echutz is chulun bazara is deraisa, so it creates Israel. If chulun bazar is rabbanim, it's nothing to worry about. It's a perfectly good shchita. But if chulun bazar is deraisa, then the moment you start slicing the neck in the shchita, the animal becomes asher b'anoah, idach lav de marakata. Amal Rabaka b'rei derabba. Maybe kika mechayev nami ahupurta. Maybe the dal vei is triggered also right at the beginning. Amal Rabashi l'sitchei. Don't push me off that way, because v'tav chay kula be'inim v'lekha. You're chayiv for the tvicha only at the end of the tvicha. Elakasha. Amal lehachi Amal Rav Gamda mishmei derabba. Kika mechayev. Where are you going to be chayiv? Even if you hold yesh on the shchita mechila batzoif and you hold chulun bazar deraisa, it's going to shachat mitzah simona bechutz the gomron bifnim. Simple. Gewaltig. As an aside, someone asked me, why is it that you don't find mentioned mefurish in the Torah that the Tzvardeya got schar for jumping into the ovens? The Tzvardeya, they really committed suicide. The Medrash talks about it. But the Torah doesn't say anything that they got any schar. But the dogs, all they had to do was not bark. They didn't have to give up their lives. All they did was not bark. And the Torah says, they have an unending supply of geschmack meat. All they did, I'm sorry, it says by Nevela. So why is that fair? Zot mati gewaltig, because it's a lot easier to jump into a fire than to keep your mouth shut when you're supposed to keep your mouth shut.
I'm actually speaking by offer of the
But everybody, okay. Dr. Gemara, Ganav al Pishnaim. We were talking this week at the H3 about employee relationships. So there was someone who's going to be speaking on one of the panels. So I said it's only appropriate that if you're talking about any Indian in a public setting with Eaton, you should start off with a Dvar Torah, and you should surely present the Torah's perspective on the subject that you're discussing. So what is the Torah's perspective on employee relationships? So we actually have two examples of it. And we know that in the Jewish way, if you have a boss that you feel takes advantage of you and makes you work very hard, what you should do is you should destroy his business, steal everything he has, and run away. You see it by Yaakov Avinu. He basically shut Lavan down because Lavan did not comply with normal employee standards. So because of that, Yaakov shut him down, took everything he had. And then Klal Yisrael also had an unreasonable employer that had betrayed him. So what do? They cleaned them all out. They took everything they had. And they ran away. So he said that he doesn't think he's going to say that. Okay. So to Gemara weiter. Ganav al Pishnaim, v'tavach u'machar al Piyan. You have one set of Edom that was following this guy around. They had Eidos that he had stolen, and then they brought Eidos that he was Tavach u'machar. It really means Tavach u'machar, right? So the halacha is, now he has Bedal V'hei. What if Edom came along and said, how could you have been there by the Geneva? How could you have been there by the Tvicha Mechira? You were with us in Lezhensk. You were at Miami, wherever we were. So the halacha is, Mishalman HaKol. These two Edom were going to be Mechayev the Ganav Dalad V'hei. So now these two Edom have to pay the Ganav Dalad V'hei. Or he's not a Ganav, to pay the innocent victim, Dalad V'hei. But what would happen if there were two sets of Edom? Ganav al Pi Shnayim. Ganav al Pi Shnayim. V'tavach u'machar al Pi Shnayim acher. So there's two sets of Edom here. And Elu ve'elu nimtzu zayim. And both sets became zayim. Harishonim mishalmin tashlumi kefel. The first set will pay kefel, because that's what they wanted to be chayvim. V'achroinim mishalmin tashlumi kefel. And the second set pays him the extra 3, because Dalet V'hei is just 2 or 3 more than the kefil that he paid. Dalet V'hei doesn't mean an extra Dalet V'hei. It means total Dalet V'hei after you calculate the carry of the kefil.
This is the first time.
That's right.
Is it 3?
Why 3? Because it's assuming a shor. Yeah, it's assuming a shor.
It's the first time.
Rash's l'shor.
This is the first time that we've clarified that clearly in the Mishnah.
What?
That Dal V'hei is not.
It's over and
above
above the
and
kefil.
beyond
That's right.
kefil.
It includes the kefil.
It includes the case.
That's right. So I want to stop a second, because Rashi points out in the very first case, well, what happens if they're saying two separate Eidos, right? He stole it on Monday and he shechted it on Tuesday. What if the Eidim said, you were with us on Monday? So there was argument on that part. And then only the next day, someone came along and said, and you were with us on Tuesday. There, the Eidim don't pay Dal V'hei, because they were, once they were chuzam for the Geneva, their Eidos of the Tvicha Mechira is already bought. It was bottled, so even if you're mazim them later, it doesn't matter. Their Eidos was bottled already before you can be mazim. So their Eidos still has to be standing. In order for them to be Mechayev al Tazoma, their Eidos had to still be standing. If their Eidos is already knocked off, because in Ein Geneva, Ein Tvicha Mechira, then if the Hazama came for the Geneva first, then they don't pay anything, even if they're Muzam on the Tvicha Mechira.
They saw him shech, they didn't see him steal, so it could be it was his animal.
Well,
That's all they're saying.
Oh, that's a very, very important point. If it was two separate Eidim, the second guy's, their Eidos is nothing without the first Eidos. That's true. And we're going to see that in Rashi. I'm going to learn Rashi here.
It's the same set of Eidim.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
said both.
yeah. So Mashal Masakoil, like we said. V'achroinim is Shalom and Gimel, in the case where it was two sets of Eidim, L'shor. Of course, they had to be mazim first, the Eidei Tvicha Mechira. The Eidei Geneva Hozmu Tchila, if the Eidei Geneva were first eliminated, Batla La Eidus Tvicha. There's no more Eidus Tvicha, because as Mati says, even though we know that she shechted it, the Dilma Baile Machru Loi. And therefore, V'chimitzim Yamai Mashalmi. The moment there's no more Eidei Geneva, the Tvicha are nothing. Right? We learned a couple of days ago that they did tficha could be even considered davar v'lechatzi davar because they don't see a complete thing. The Gemara said at the end you could piggyback on the Eid Geneva, but once there's no Eid Geneva, the Eid tficha aren't saying anything of substance. Okay, let's go weiter. So elu be'elu nimtzu. Let's go back. Ganav pishnayim v'tavach amach b'shnayim acherim, and elu be'elu nimtzu zayvimin harishonim mishalman tashlum kevel v'achronim mishalman tashlum gim. How about nimtzu achronim zayvim? The achronim is zayvim, but he still was a ganav. He was still a ganav because the first eidim are intact. If only the second pair who said tavach umachar are zayvimin, who mishalman tashlum kevel, he's still mechuyev to pay kevel as the ganav because it's still proven that he was a ganav. But the hein mishalman tashlum gimel. Now that is a good business. You steal, you pay kefil, then they pay you 3 times. That's already 50% on the dollar. You make good money. So it's a good business. You just have to find Adim to lie about you. And then you can be mad them. That's right. So hu mishalman tashlum kefil, they mishalman tashlum gimel. Okay, what happens if only echad min ha'achroinim zayin? Only one of the second pair were found to be muzah. So that's batla edu shniya. That eliminates the Eidush Shniya, as Rashi says. He'll still pay kefil, but he doesn't pay Dal Vei, but neither do the fake Eidim pay Dal Vei. They ain't Patur, they ain't Eidim Mishalman Mammon, Achi Yizum Mushneim. The rule is by Azama, if they're not both Muzam, they don't have to pay. Of course, they're Eidim Zibot, he doesn't either have to pay. What about Echad Min Rishonim Zaymin? One of the Eidim Geneva was proven to be wrong. There it's Batla Kola Eidus. Why? Shem Ein Geneva, and Tvicha vein Mechira. Dr. Rashi, Batla Kala Edus, for who Potter? He's going to be Potter. The Hain Patur, and they're Potter as well, everyone's Potter. Even if after the first set of Edus got messed up because one of them was Huzam, and then 2 Edim were Mazim, the second set of Edim, there's still no Din Azama on the second set of Edim. Why? Ein Meshalman, Shari Batla Edus and Kfar, V'hokashu. Their Edus was already bottled before they were Huzam. They were contradicted. In other words, they can't be Mechayiv them for Tvicha Mechira if there was no Gedev. The Kivin the Loy Ganav, if he didn't steal, because those Edim were eliminated, Loy Tavach. Yeah. No, Loy Tavach, they didn't, right. As Rashi said earlier, what they shechted might have been something that they purchased from. V'hachi Loy Mechayvoi, Ella Aimanu Yisam Shesasra Gufa Shaledus. They're not going to be Mechayiv unless they were both Sasra, but they wouldn't be Mechayiv them if their Edus was destroyed because of the fact that the Edus Geneva were destroyed. The Choshekin who's Mushnayim are Rishonim Tchila. Choshekin, we're talking about if only one of the first Edim were Huzam. But if they're both Huzam, for sure the second set of Edus are Hukash, She'edus Shniya Batla. Ella Shebizman Shalei Huzmu. Elo Echad, the Chiddush here is even if only one of the 2 original Edim for the Geneva was Huzam, Batlu Shteyim, they're both Batlu. But if the second set of Edis was Huzam, Loi Batla Edis Rishoina, Elo Mishalman and Kefil, he would still pay Kefil. Or if they were Huzam after the Edi Tficha, then the Edim would pay Kefil.
This is possible. If he was moited to the Geneva, then the Edus of Tvicha would stand.
Itmar Zaktamar, no, because if Ibal Kefel is one of the units of the Dal Vei, if there's no Kefel, there's no Dal Vei. Because the Gemara says Arba v'Chamisha Marchmana v'Loi Shlosh of Arba. So since he knocked out the Kefel, it patters him from So Zaktamar Itmar, Eid Zayman, Abai Amal Mafrehu Nifshal Rabba Mekan Lebon. 2 Edim came and said Reuben owes Shimon $100,000, and they said this testimony on January the 1st. On March the 1st, 2 Edim came along and said, you 2 Edim could not have saw a loan of $100,000 between Reuben and Shimon on January the 1st because you were with us in Kerestir. So you couldn't have been there, right? So now they're Huzam. So the question is, what if these same Edim who falsely testified on January the 1st, what if they signed on a Shtar Mechira? You bought a Sada from somebody and you wrote up a Shtar to make the Kinyan. And what happened is they're the Edim that are giving the whole Shtar, the whole Mechira validity. They signed on it, right? They were the Edim Kedushin by your Chassid.
January 1st.
No, on February 1st. So the question is, since they ended up being Huzam, in March you found out that back in January they lied. So now they're postulated. So there goes your wedding. There goes your star. Right? So do you say Lemafreyo Nifso? And there goes your star. That's Abaya Shita, Abaya Lemafreyo Nifso. Rav Amar Mikanu Labo Nifso. No. Any testimony that they said until they got caught is valid testimony. It's valid testimony. Mikanu Labo is not valid. So we need to understand the Svara. Abaya Lemafreyo Nifso. It's very mistaber. Behu Shaita, the acid, from the moment they said false edus, Havalei Russia. That renders them to be Rishayim. But Torah Amara al Toshish Russia 8. The pasuk says a little bit differently. It says Leishisa Shem Mashav al Toshish Yotcha im Russia liyos etcham. And clearly these guys have been proven to be liars since January the 1st. But Rav Amar Mikanu Labo Nifsal. It's only Mikanu Labo. Why? Because think about it. Eid Zomim Chidishu. That we're saying that the Eid Zomim is believed and the first set of Eidim are assumed to be crooks, it's a Chiddush. The Atreo training it. We say we saw, you say we didn't see. My cause is that Tzai is Lahani. Tzai is Lahani. Who said that you should be believed? Maybe I should be believed. So the fact that you're believed in and of itself is a Chiddush. And therefore, Hilchach ein lach boy ela mishas Chiddush feil.
Why talk is it?
I'm sorry? Okay, so therefore, it's from there on on, so all the Kedushin is good. That's one shot in Rava. But he says that what's the difference? We know the guy's a crook. You know, the guy's a little Russian. Ika Damri.
Don't know.
We found that he's a Rosh.
Why he says he's a
Why
Russian.
is he a crook?
What? Well, he is a crook. It's a Kiddush, but but once we know that he's believed, the guy's a crook. Ika Damri. And Tosus is going to make a very strong argument. You're killing them if it was a question of Misa, but you trust him, right? We obviously you can't say we only believe him Lagabe killing the guy because he said Aegis that someone got killed, but no, we're going to accept his Aegis.
So you're Chai Misa for that action. Why is it?
Because if you're Chai Misa means you lied. That means we're very sure you lied. So once you lied, you shouldn't be trusted. I hear. Okay. Rava Ikadami Rava Namik Abayis. Rava gives you the buy that really the guy's a crook from January the 1st. But
Maybe
nevertheless, I'm sorry?
Maybe he did tshuva.
Yeah, I think maybe the tshuva is good for guys to mix Kedushin Amnas as a tzaddik. When it comes to Choshe Mishpatin, I don't think they work that way.
Even if he did true. He's postulated.
Forever and ever? No. Masachem Akubi can't do tshuva? I'm sure a guy can do tshuva. Once a guy becomes postulated, he never becomes good again. I can't imagine.
He has to go through therapy.
Oh. Ikadamri, Rav Namik Abai Shirle, the Amr La Mafreyo Nifsal. So why is the Kedushin good? Why is the star good? Well, at the time of the Rava, you should say to the Lakugais. I mean, what are you supposed to do? You could never hire an aide. What are you going to do if the guy gets caught? So, in order to protect Lakugais, we're going to say Hefker Bez and Hefker, that the field that you bought with an invalid star is your field. We're giving it to you because we have to protect Lakugais.
What about Kedushin?
I'm not sure. My Beinayu, what's the difference between the two svaros of Rava? Simple. In a case where it's not a chiddush that the first set of Edom should be passed, where would that be? Ta'asidu be trei lechad to trei lechad. What if the two Edom, instead of just another pair of Edom, two Edom came for the first Ed and two Edom came for the second Ed. Now in each Ed it's 2 against 1. Now it's not a chiddush anymore that the second set of Edom are believed. So if you hold it's al chiddush, then in here it'll be possible mafreya. But if you don't say the Lakugais, it's the same say the Lakugais. How is he supposed to know? Inami the paslinu begaz lanusa. If they said iman hoyisem, we're directly contradicting them. Maybe we should believe them. Why believe us? But if we said, I'm not commenting on whether or not you were there or not. Maybe you were there. Maybe it's even true what you saw. But I'm saying Yadis that you're a Goslin in some other case, which renders you a postulatus. There, it's poshut that you believe them. Because what they're saying Yadis on, they're not being contradicted at all. There's no chiddush, and therefore the star would be possible. Amar b'yom midifti, over the papa of the kavasi the Rava, or papa passing like Rava, or Basher milchtig was the Abaye, the hilchazak kavasi the Abaye kiyal b'yal kagam. So we know Yud is Yud Shlemidas, and Ayin is a Zoimim. Abaye holds the Mafreyu Nifsal, and that's how we pass. So I want to just be aware. There's a very important places over here. Because Rava says that an eight zoimim, that the second set of Eidim are believed is a chiddush. So Tosfos wants to analyze what exactly is the chiddush. What exactly is the chiddush? So Tosfos has a beautiful stick. Well, let's look at this Tosfos. We won't read the whole Tosfos. We'll just learn a little bit of it. It's like the 10th line down in the very wide lines. Ein lach boy elam ishas chadusha ve'elach. Zok Tosfos. First of all, ein lahak sois minole de mehemna hamazimin lepoisla. How do you know that the Torah tells you that the mazimin are neman to pasal datus? Does it say anywhere in the Torah that they believe to pasal datus? Doesn't say that. Nema the ein lach l'ruboy lechadusha. What the Torah says, that's the Torah's chiddush. What the Torah doesn't say is not the Torah's chiddush. All it says in the Torah is vasisav loy kasher zoma. But aval ein nafsol, the Torah doesn't say they're apostle. The Torah just says punish them. The Torah says that's a ludicrous kasher. The vadai kiven the mishalman moment v'neharogin. If you're even going to make them pay for any losses they tried to cost or kill them, kos again to nafsol. Avada, you have to say that they're considered posulatus. The Torah is not going to be believed the second Adam to kill a guy while saying he's still them. Avokasha, but there still is shver. The Rav Chisda the Amar, Rav Chisda told us a logic halacha that's not based on the Torah, it's based on Pashat Pshat. He said in Cheskas Abatim the following halacha: Shteki de Adam hamakishes zuasu. What happens if there's two sets of Adam? One said Reuben borrowed $1,000 from Shimon, and one said he didn't. One of them is lying. They're both possible from now on. You know why? Why would I even want to get involved with Adam that are lying? We know some of them are lying. So both sets are possible. If both sets are possible without any chiddush of Adam Zaymin, then you can ask a kasha, and Kain and chiddush mashin of solid. Come to choice, the chiddush of Adam Zaymin is that they get killed, but that they're puzzled, that we know anyway. So if that's the case, Adarabba, you know what the chiddush is? According to Chisda, the default should be that you're both be possible, and the chiddush of the Torah is that the second Adam are believed in their kosher. But that the first Adam are possible, that's not a chiddush of Adam Zaymin, that's Pashat Pshat. And if that's the case, we have a massive problem with Rava. Because how could Rava say, that's not a chiddush? So how would we understand Rava with Reb Chisda? And Rashi says we want to say that Rava holds like Reb Chisda. The Yishloimers of Tosfos, just skipping a little bit, the boy the Meimer Hasav the Rava Reb Chisda will have a time with the Rava Mishum Chiddush El Mishum Seder the Lekuchos. The only way Rava could stand with Reb Chisda is if he has the Svar of Seder the Lekuchos, where even though it's not a chiddush, but of Seder the Lekuchos, we say that the Edom should be good. Okay, that's all I wanted. I'm sorry.
Not good.
We say they're good because of Seder L'Gulas. Yeah. Then tells us one other very interesting thing, and he asks the following. He says, "Why is it just a little bit towards the bottom of Tosfos, maybe not even 2/3 of the way down, maybe 3/5. Why is it a chiddush? You should always believe the second Adam because they have a mikot. The Migudi boy have a pasal kamoy because lanusa. Right? The Gemara says that if they say that these are pasal Adam because they're Gaslanim, so they're not directly contradicting what the Adam said, what the first Adam said, then you have to believe the second Adam. Right? That's what the Gemara said. You're looking at me funny.
I'm thinking it through.
How do you have a
second set of Adam?
We're saying that they're lying.
I could have said
I could have said they're Gaslanim.
that's a lie. How do you know if they're Gazalim?
Every Migo works like that. If I'm going to lie, I would have said a better lie. So if we're lying that their testimony is not true, we could have said a better lie to knock off their testimony.
If they say what?
That they're Gaslanim. And then they have no recourse. Then for sure we're believed.
And the Adam themselves are possible Adam for a different
That's right.
reason.
That's right.
That's a migu.
That's exactly what that's what I was asking. Believe me when I say that they're lying.
Same exact thing.
No, I'm not saying they're lying. You're saying the truth, but they're possibly. I'm not being mocked with them.
Why is that a migu?
Because I would have been able to knock off. I could have knocked off their testimony in a different way. If I was lying, I had a sure way of knocking off their testimony by saying they're Gaslanim. So that's what it asks. The boy have a pasla kamoy the Gaslanusa. Whenever there's two Edom that are contradicting each other, always lahamni basroi b'migoi. According to anybody, the second set of Adam should have a migoi. Well, Emery, the read tells us a massive chiddush in Hilchas Migoi. The l'shayich migoi el ba'adam echad. One person could say, if I was going to lie, I would have said a better lie. But they expect two people to conspire together. Abu b'shnei b'nei adam l'shayich migoi the ein das shneim shaveh. There's no way you could say they would have both had this in mind, because they would have been, I'm afraid to lie, I don't want to say that. So therefore, there's no migoi when there's two people. There's only a migoi when you're dealing with one person. Okay, Baruch Hashem, we finished the daf, and Bez Hashem, we will continue tomorrow on daf Ayin Gimel.
Need to work with the second time is.
Yeah.
Not a bad
It is a
sign.
bad
good boss.
because it's undisputable, it's uncontestable.
I have to give testimony as why they're gonna them.
Yeah,
What happened over
because I was investing that they were caught lying.
So you gotta
Somebody
bring-
was bossing them 3 weeks ago.
You gotta bring some.
They're saying that their testimony, we were their best and we witnessed it. It's very easy to discredit somebody. You just post on Facebook.
One second, then you're out of the whole parsha of Adam Zaymin, and now you have Shneim. You wouldn't be
It's not,
believed.
it's not Trey, because
Trade.
no one's contesting me that they're not going to.
Yeah, but I have two Adam that come and testify.
That Reuben
that
will shoot $100.
Right,
And we say, could be, but you're a apostle.
and so how does Bezdin?
So Bezin now has no Adam. So if Shimon wants to collect from Reuben, Bezin will say, how much you make Chabal Arayah? These Adam apostles, find other Adam.
Because there's no achosha there.
Right.
Wow. Okay.
There's a very beautiful shtickle from the Meshach HaChmedinah, the Allah is kasher zomam, aloy kasher os. Right? So if they say that a guy's going to get killed, before they get killed, if they're muzam, then they get killed. But if the guy got killed already, then you don't do anything to them. Logic should dictate, if they got killed already, for sure you should do something to them. Right? So what's shot? So the Meshach HaChmedinah said a very simple question. Imagine you have a relative that's being falsely accused of something that's machayim with the death penalty. You have a relative, you have a brother who Adam said on him that he's machal shabbos chayv misa. You're going to want to do whatever you can possibly do to stop this, even if you have to pay Adam to lie and say iman ha'yisem, right? So therefore, what are you going to do? You have a choice. If I bring Adam that say iman ha'yisem, now they're going to get killed. You don't want to kill them. You just want to save your brother, right? So if you hire false Adam,
You do want to.
if you hire false Adam,
They're saying false testimony.
but you hire false Adam to say they're lying. But you don't want to kill them. You're not a murderer. They're murderers. You want to stop your brother. So you would, if you were going to hire Adam falsely, you would pay them to say that no, your brother there wasn't Machal Shabbos, and that'll save him because the kosher saves the guy, right? But what if they succeeded again? Now you're not going to be happy anymore with hiring a kosher. Now you want revenge. Now you want blood. So you're going to pay somebody to lie and say Yimon Yisrael. Zok the Torah, then they're going to get killed. You know what's going to happen? Then their relatives are going to do the same thing to you. There'll be a vicious cycle. So the Rebbeinu said, Kasher Zaman v'lo Kasher Os.
What is that?
Meshach. Beautiful part. Okay, I get the vach.
Human nature. Never, huh? Mama, human nature.
Yeah, but I want to sneeze from.
Well, you have a very, very